Jamon. Oh! That is probably the worst interpretation of Michael Jackson that you're going to be seeing here, guys. Hi, everyone. Awesome Joe here. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to watching another episode of Awesome Joe's Movie Reviews. And today we're going to go ahead and be talking about the newest movie out in theaters, the newest biopic that Lionsgate and Universal has just released is Michael. And I know this joke is out there. I've seen it already so many times. No, not the John Travolta 97 movie. Even though I enjoyed that movie very much and I would love to do a movie review off of that. But no, today we're talking about the Michael Jackson biopic named Michael. And I got a ton of notes here, guys, because there's a lot that needs to be said. And a lot of things that are not allowed to be said. So I'm going to be just as careful about what I talk about, as well as how the movie was, because apparently there's so much about this story that could have been told but was not told. And even if they were to be told, it needs a bigger movie time frame rather than 2 hours and 10 minutes. Supposedly before they did the cut, it was a good 3.5 hours. But of course, according to legal accusations, they had to do some reshoots, cut a few things that costed them between 10 to 20 million dollars. The original budget was 155, but it looks like they with those reshoots that they had done, it looks as though they went up to a good 220, along with marketing additions to be about a good $220 million. So that's a lot of money. I mean, it's so much is spent for this to make it happen, and it even took a long time for this movie to be released. It's been years upon years of them wanting to doing a movie adaptation of a biopic towards the king of pop himself, Michael Jackson. So yes, we're going to go ahead and be talking about Michael 2026. This movie is directed by Antoine Fuqua. I'm familiar with his work, most of course with Training Day and King Arthur. I haven't watched any of the Equalizer movies, but he directed those, along as Olympus Has Fallen and Southpaw. I gotta watch Southpaw. That one I am actually a little intrigued with because I'm a Southpaw myself. But yeah, I really do love his directing. Of course, we're all favored towards the movie Training Day. I mean, even for me, I actually enjoyed that movie very much. But the problem is that this is actually something very dangerous. Not dangerous as life-threatening. No, it's more dangerous as, is it something that we need to touch on? Is it something that we should just focus on what we already know, or should we do this theatrical adaptation of the story? Well, here we are. We got it, and from what we're getting, not a lot of critics are very happy with it. Audience, though, however, they actually do enjoy it, giving it a 95%. On Rotten Tomatoes, critically wise, which of course not many would even care about, but at a 38%. This might actually lower audiences' expectations who haven't seen the movie yet, that are wondering, should I go and watch this? Because you have people who do love it, you have people that don't like it at all. So it's going to have a lot of mixed reviews here. And of course, I'm going to have a lot of notes here, so I'm going to try and zoom through everything that I can possible, so that way this video is not extremely long and boring you guys. But I'm going to try and keep this as entertaining as possible. But yeah, the movie is distributed by Lionsgate and Universal, okay? And the movie is actually expected to make in between $85 million to $95 million on opening weekend. It's a possibility because there are still a lot of Michael Jackson fans out there who admire his music, who are just overly astonished by his dance choreography, his stage performances, the works. He brought a lot of great entertainment into the world by the music industry. So, and for me, on the other hand, even though that I don't know, I'm going to clarify this clearly, is I don't know anything about Michael Jackson's personal storyline. I really don't. Nor do I know anything within his professional realm in the music world. I just loved listening to his music. That's all. I grew up with it. I would always go crazy every time when I would hear that music. You got to understand this. And it was great. I knew this was going to happen. Because, as you all know, I have a lot of bad experiences going to the movie theaters, and barely anybody's there. It's just myself and maybe another or two. But no, this one actually had a good minimal audience. I would say about between 10 to 15 people, which is an improvement. Yes, compared to all the other movies that I've seen this year, it is quite an improvement. But when they would play the music of Michael Jackson's songs practically throughout the entire movie, even including myself, I'll admit, I was actually singing to to the music, and I was not dancing, but I was tapping my foot a lot. You can have a really bad day and just watch this movie just for the music itself, and it'll really brighten your day. It'll really get you grooving, man. So it's fun. I do want to talk about Jafar Jackson's performance in this movie, but first we're going to talk about young Michael, okay? So young Michael is played by Giuliano, excuse my pronunciation, Kini Valdi, okay? Never heard of him before. I'm pretty sure he's new to all this. His voice is actually blended in with Michael Jackson's actual voice. When he was a child for the Jackson 5. He sings songs like I'll Be There, Never Can Say Goodbye, Who's Loving You, I Want You Back, ABC is easy as 1, 2, 3, and the Love You Save. Okay. But oh my goodness, when you first hear him sing, and it's not his actual legitimate full 100% voice. Of course, like I mentioned, it's blended in with Michael Jackson's voice when he was a kid. It's like listening to his voice for the first time. It's very touching. It's very heartwarming. It's just pure entertainment. It really grabs your soul, and gives you an enormous amount of excitement. So it's fantastic. I really did enjoy his performance. This is actually probably my most favorite part of the movie, which is the whole Jackson 5 story persona that was in the 60s and the 70s and so on. So I thought he just did fantastic. I love that part of the movie. Joe Jackson, which is of course the father to Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5, so on and so forth, is played by Coleman Domingo. I always got this guy mixed up with Idris Elba. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one, but I've seen a lot of his work because he does look. I thought it was Idris Elba in The Running Man, but no, it's Coleman Domingo. Brilliant guy. I mean, I love his acting. He does really good. He's in Euphoria. He's in also this thing on Netflix called The Four Seasons. I watched that season with Steve Carell and Tina Fey. It's a great season. Fear the Walking Dead, didn't know he was in it, but awesome. Rustin, and 2021 adaptation of Candyman. So the way that he does his performance as Joe Jackson, I know this is probably one of, at the very least, things that I know about Michael Jackson is that yes, he had a very terrible childhood, being upbrought by his father, who would legitimately beat him and call him a whole bunch of names and things like that. So I, for one, can understand that. I didn't have that same exact upbringing. I had a very lovable mother, but when it comes to, discipline-wise, it's a little similar. not too extreme, but, I can understand, because when this guy brings out the belt, I'm like, ooh, flashbacks. Flashbacks. And they even got into the habit of, this is one of the things I didn't know, is that, they don't call him dad, they don't call him father, they don't call him anything, they call him by his name, Joe, because he likes to be looked upon as their music manager, not their dad. So he gives this performance as like a dark villainy, and it's just very intimidating. Very intimidating. But it's really brilliant. If you ask me, he feels very, because the prosthetics in this movie is a little unrealistic for me, but I decided to let that go. I find it a little funny, but but I just went with it. I just went along with it. I followed along. And I kind of sometimes thought this could, if Eddie Murphy could actually do something like this in a Coming to America movie, I feel like he was in this movie or something. But no, I still think that Coleman Domingo did an outstanding performance. Nia Long, I'm gonna go through this rapidly. Nia Long, played by Katherine Jackson, who is the mom. She still looks the same after 30 years. When we first saw her in like Friday or in Big Mama's House, Are We There Yet? Or even in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, she still looks the same after 30 years. I mean, bravo. There's a lot of actors and actresses after 30 years that, they look different. But her, I think that she still looks quite the same. So whatever you're doing, Nia Long, keep it up. She's a very supportive mother, but there are many times in this where she stands in the background while the dad disciplines the kids and all that and other stuff. And and I understand that that's part of the story. And one of the things that I understand as a parent myself is, when you're a parent, you're not, it's not a job for just one individual. It's for both the mother and the father to be on the same page and raising your children the right way, to where the two of you guys fully agree to their upbringing. So, and of course, a movie such as this did not do that. So I understand from her position as a woman who was probably within the history of getting violently abused and things like that. I understand. She just hides in the shadow and let it happen. Even though she feels a lot of hurt and heart towards the disciplining of her children, that she didn't know how to stand to that. I get it. I really do get it. And these are the things that I'm really trying to avoid having to stretch on and having to talk about, because I know it's very, very traumatic. One of the things I really do love about this is how the relationship between the mom and Michael Jackson, they share a lot of movie times together. They have a lot of snack time, sharing popcorn, stuff like that, watching a lot of movies. I think that that's great. I did the same thing with my mom too, so I know where they're coming from with that. So it's fantastic. He even gets a lot of his work off of the things that he witnesses through the TV, either whether if it's through movies or the news or anything that pops into his imagination. Because of course, as we all know, which is brought up into the movie, his whole fascination with Peter Pan and Neverland and and all the movies that he's watched. I really do get that. He didn't really have a lot of or even at all any friends, so he had his own friends, which were the animals that he had brought in, of course, that we see in the movie. The rat part I didn't know about, so it kind of weirded me out when I saw that. It just came and went, and then you got the whole thing with the giraffe and the llama, and then as well as the chimpanzee Bubbles. I knew that he had a chimpanzee, and I didn't like the CGI of this. I think that it could have worked very well with a trained chimp. I don't think that there's anything out of the ordinary that a trained chimp could have done that he did in this movie. So I didn't like the CGI. It looks very expensive, but it also looks very bad. You even get Miles Teller in this as well too, playing John Bronca. Didn't know who this guy was until I looked him up. I did a lot of research. He happens to be Michael's entertainment lawyer and a longtime manager. So he does a much more better job than the managing work that his father did. So I can tell the enormous amount of envy that the dad has throughout this movie, being terminated and being replaced, and having to seeing that his life, his gold, his money maker is going out the door here. So but he has a very minimum role, but I really did enjoy every second of him being in the movie. He was great. You've got Colleen Durrell Jones playing Bill Bray, which I didn't know that he even had a bodyguard growing up, and he's kind of like a father figure to Michael. You see him being introduced to him when he was a kid, and then he just upbrings him to him being a grown man. So you know, of course he's going to be a much more closer father figure, which of course is another substitute to his actual father's position as a dad. Um, so I really did admire his performance in this. Laura Harrier plays Susanna de Passe. Okay, I think I pronounced that wrong. But anyways, when I saw her approach, her approach into the movie, I'm like, where have I seen this girl from? She's so familiar, and it had to take me to look her up, for the sake of this video, and find out. Oh yeah, that's right. That's the love interest from Spider-Man: Homecoming. Duh! Why didn't I know that? Why didn't I figure that out? But yes, she plays this character who happens to be the Motown Records executive, and I don't know. She was in it for a small amount of time, but I really did admire her performance. It just gave a soft, welcoming feel to the whole thing. So I thought it was great. You get, of course, the Jackson 5 put into this, which is about a good 35% of the movie. You know, you got all the brothers there: Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon. You even get the sister, Latoya. But they're all pretty much in the background. They don't really have many lines. They're just background characters. You know, we don't really get to explore anything about them. I know that there's a story that they have for each individual. But of course, this movie is called Michael. It's all about Michael Jackson, and I get that because it's just weird that the movies the producers are pretty much the majority of the brothers, Jackie, Tito, and Jermaine. But they don't really put a lot of storyline onto those brothers. You know, they're only in there for a minimum amount of time, even though they were a huge part of Michael's life. But of course, the thought did pop into my head, and I'm sure it did with so many others, is there's no Janet Jackson. And from what I found out is, she didn't approve of how the story, the script that she had read, it didn't seem as truthful due to her experience. I was wondering, is she born sometime after? Like, no. She was actually, upbrought with, the way that this movie's time frame was in. So, but yeah, she didn't approve. She didn't want her likeness to be put into the film. So she didn't approve of that. So I can understand. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of stuff when it comes to this Jackson family that I can understand why they just don't want to be a part of it. That they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to expose anything. They want to leave it in the past, and I get that. They just want to move forward. I did talk about everything when it comes to him and his fascination with animals and Peter Pan and Neverland. They have many time jumps. It looks as though this movie is very splattered together. Giving you a certain time frame one after another, a certain sequence, but it has really nothing to do with the movie. It's just stating like, oh, hey, remember when this happened? You guys know, we all know that you guys know about this stuff, so we're just gonna throw it in there because we know that this is a biopic. So we're just gonna give you what we can give you legally for your guys' entertainment with this movie. So you go from the 1960s to the 1970s, which is the Jackson 5. Then you get the 1978 solo breakthrough. And then from 82 to 83, the whole sequences between Thriller and Beat It, the music videos. I thought those scenes were phenomenal. I loved the Beat It sequence where, he's teaching these two rival gangs coming together, and instead of killing each other and beating each other up, they're dancing together because they love the music of Michael Jackson. His music brought them together. So I thought that was fantastic. I loved that. Didn't know that. That's another thing. Like I said, a whole bunch of things here I didn't know about, but I love that I found I learned something from this movie. Then you get the 1984 Pepsi commercial incident where he burns his hair catches on fire due to a rehearsal performance, and his scalp gets burnt out, which is only maybe at least 10 minutes of the film. They don't really put so much story into that, and it's towards like the ending of the movie. And I love the fact that the money that he had gotten for that incident, though, was given to the burnt victims at that time. So when it comes to this movie, I don't really know the realisms of this, but according to the movie, just the movie itself alone, I loved that he would have such compassion for the hospital patients and burnt victims and things like that. He had a lot of compassion towards that, and he wanted to really give a lot of those patients hope, especially the ones who were fans, because he would go to, according to the movie, learned that every time he went to a store or anywhere he socialized, but including a toy store, he would sign autographs with the kids and stuff like that. So I was very fond of that. It was really great to watch. A lot of new things for me to learn about when it comes to the life of Michael. The good stuff. Okay, like I said, there's a lot of things I'm being careful with when I talk about this stuff. I didn't know about this whole thing about him originally having a fat nose. Due to a dancing incident, as well as his father making fun of his big nose, he got numerous surgeries, which of course, caused the nose to get very narrow. I know they do a lot of parodies, and they include Michael Jackson into those to make fun of him and things like that about his nose. I didn't really understand the originality towards the whole nose thing. But after this, I found out, and it's just like, oh, okay, I get it. I really do. It's a terrible thing to do, but I guess that's just comedy for you. Um, and yeah, and then of course they do some mention about him with his skin loss color, but they don't really go back onto that. It seems as though more of like a sequel foreshadowing. So if there's a possible sequel to this, which we'll talk a little bit more about that later on here in this video, if there's a possible sequel to this, they might use that, as well as many other things that seems as though they are foreshadow. They may feel like they're just added into there just for our entertainment purposes, but it looks as though it feels more foreshadowing for me as a movie fan and a movie critic. Looking at it clearly, that if there was a sequel, I can see why they planted that seed. They wanted to use that as something for their story in the second film. If there is going to be a second film, there's no clarification towards that just yet. And then of course you get the 1988 Bad Tour in London, which of course it was. A lot of people would say it is a terrible ending to the movie, and I can see that, because as soon as he's done singing the song "Bad," the movie's just over, and it doesn't feel like the movie wrapped itself up enough to where like, okay, that was a great movie that stood on its own. It didn't feel like it stood on its own. It felt like it was something as a stepping stool for what's to come in the second movie. Which, of course, that's a lot of times what they do with part one and part two movies. You give us a story in part one that's actually a few bits and pieces as what's going to be given to us in the second movie. So, but like I said, there is no clarification for a second movie. This is just a movie of itself all alone. There is no second film announced just yet. So we are going to talk about really quickly about how at the ending of the film it says his story continues. You would think that this would be a good statement stating that, okay, there is more to the story, but this is where we're going to stop. This is where we're going to let you guys know that we know that you guys know everything else that happens after this, so we're not going to go ahead and talk about that just yet. But it felt very like Avengers Doomsday, like Michael Jackson will return in Avengers Doomsday kind of feel. I'm like, is that what we're doing here now? Like when it comes to these movies, like if we're gonna be teasing a sequel here, we're just gonna be throwing that in there. But yeah, it kind of feels like there's a possible second film that wants to be developed, but it looks as though, according to the distributors, that they are not putting any amount of effort into doing that until they find out if the first film is a success. Most likely it's going to, and it looks as though it already is, because it is beating records right now as we speak. There are many movie lovers, audiences, fans that are watching this movie as we speak. So the money's coming, and it looks as though it's going to be financially successful, but critically, of course, it's a whole other story. This movie feels like the rise of him, becoming who he is, that we all remember him by, as an independent singer coming from, a family group, to him being his own self, writing his own music, performing in his own way. You know, he wanted to be his own man. And, you know, and of course there's this big storyline between him and his father where he was terrified of his father due to the whole trauma that he was put through being raised by him. And I really do think that I do like that story, but I know that there's a whole bunch more to it than what they're telling us. You know, they really tried to just give us the brighter side of things rather than giving us what really does happen behind closed doors. So the first one feels like his rise, but if there were to be a second film, most likely it's going to be about the fall of his success. So that's what it feels like. I felt that very much. You know, a lot of songs were sung in this, but there's still so much that wasn't even done yet. I mean, you've got Black or White or Remember the Time, which is my favorite. I would love to see that if there were to be a second film. Jam, when he's, you know, playing basketball with Michael Jordan. I mean, that's awesome. I love that. I love that music video. We Are the World, which is a very memorable song, a very touching one. And even this one I loved a lot, which is We Will Be There in the Free Willy movie, man. That was a really cool song too that I grew up with. I mean, it's just phenomenal, man. And Smooth Criminal, man. Smooth Criminal. They, you know, that's another big favorable song that they never even touched. And it's like, there has to be a sequel here, people. There has to be a sequel. And one of the great things about this that I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me, man? That really caught me was this cameo that pops up. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about it because, I mean, honestly, if you guys are watching this, you pretty much have already seen the movie. So there's this character called Walter Yetnikoff, and he is the former CEO of CBS Records, and he is the one who did the promoting for Thriller on MTV. And then I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like thinking, this guy looks so familiar. And I love it when this happens because I'm trying to figure out, who the heck are you? And like I said, the prosthetics look not that realistic for me, but this one, it got me really scratching my head. Is this who I think it is? Because I have deja vu. And yes, of course, it's none other than Mr. Mike Myers. What in the world, dude? But and I thought, are they connecting this movie to to Bohemian Rhapsody? Well, the producers of this is actually the same people who did Bohemian Rhapsody, so I can understand that they wanted to go ahead and throw in some familiarity from what they did to that movie into this one, because it does feel very Bohemian Rhapsody, but not as highly successful as what they did. But yeah, he was in this, and I'm like thinking, is this the same guy? I'm like, if it's the same guy, that's so strange. That's in a way that's so cool. You're connecting movies here. Everyone wants to be Marvel now. But no, I looked him up, and he's actually a character played by character he plays, which is Ray Foster in Bohemian Rhapsody. And it's like, okay, it's two completely different people. You know, it's not this. You know, just because it's Mike Myers doesn't mean you know. If you watch Wayne's World and then you go and watch Austin Powers, you know that's Mike Myers. Like, oh, is this the same guy? Like, no. These are two completely different characters. But last and not least, we're gonna go ahead and talk about Mr. Jafar Jackson, who is playing Michael Jackson. He's 29 years old. He is the son to Michael Jackson's brother Jermaine. And you know, this is his first acting gig. I saw an interview that what he was asked about his experience into being casted into this movie. He even commented stating that he wasn't even interested in acting. He wasn't even interested in doing this. But you know, the ideas were thrown out. He was intrigued. He gave it a try. They loved it. He loved it. And bingo, we got ourselves a movie here, people. You know, his performance in this is extraordinarily amazing. I will go ahead and give it to that. Does that mean that he's a good actor? We don't know just yet, but just according to this movie itself alone, I think that it is really, really good. The look is fantastic. He sounds great. He sounds just like Michael Jackson. At first, it sounded a little funny because, of course, I just recognize more of Michael Jackson's voice as a parody rather than his own actual voice. The dance choreography is amazing. I mean, the way that he dances just like his uncle. And I think that it may be to where he even does it even better as his uncle. I don't want to say it like that, but Michael Jackson's dance moves are highly iconic and highly original. I loved it very much. He is the king of pop here, people. I mean, that's just fantastic. And this whole thing with him and his daddy issues with Joe Jackson. I mean, there's this one scene where he wasn't, Jafar wasn't even acting at all. I mean, he wasn't giving any performance. He was just standing there while his father was doing all the talking. You can just see the anger and the trauma and the insecurity within his eyes and his facial expression. I mean, all of it. You can see Michael Jackson in this performance, and you're just like, holy cow, man, that was fantastic. I loved that. He sings songs in this movie like Billie Jean and Thriller, Beat It, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, and then of course Bad at the ending of the film. So there's a lot of great memorable songs, and just even having to naming those songs while I'm doing this video, man, it's just like you're just singing and you're just beating to it, getting into the groove of things, and it's just fun. As a Michael Jackson fan, I can understand it's not a good movie. I understand it completely. Me as a movie critic, as a movie fanatic alone, I did enjoy this. It was very entertaining. I didn't feel as though I disliked the film. I looked at my watch only once, only because of the fact I was curious as to how long this movie has been running. Not that I was bored or anything. I was just curious. I did take a bathroom break because I did have a large soda, which is one of the rules that I completely ignored. Don't drink a large soda while you're watching a very long movie. And 2 hours is a good runtime. But like I said earlier, Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 38%. Audience has scored 95. But when it comes to me, Mr. Awesome Joe, I give the movie Michael 2026 an 85%. I enjoyed this movie so much. It was fantastic. It was awesome. There was a lot that I talked about, and there was a lot of stuff that I didn't talk about, but it was a lot of stuff that I didn't even know, and I had learned off of this movie. So that's what I give credits to, is just getting to know more about who Michael Jackson was, according to what the film is telling me. I don't know if it's legit. I don't know if it's true, but it's just something that I found very helpful, and I admired it very much. I would like to see a second film to this. I understand it's going to get a lot more darker and a lot more dangerous if they were to do that. It's not going to be what this first film is. It's going to be something completely different if it were to happen. Because if you look at real quick, Wicked Part 1, and you got Wicked for Good. Wicked Part 1 was an amazing movie. I loved it. And I was so excited to go and see Wicked for Good. I went and watched it. And even though it was my favorite movie of last year, it still didn't beat as great as what the first film was, So, but yeah, there's a lot about this story that needs to be told. And I think that evidently within its success, I find that they will really come to the conclusion of doing the second movie. So we'll cross our fingers. Let's hope. And when it does happen, I hope it will be just as successful, that it will satisfy the audiences who don't approve of this first film, that will see the second one and just paste those two movies together to make it one whole complete movie. That, most would say that it probably would have been more successful if it was a series rather than a film, because of course you only have a limited amount of time. But when you do a series, you can go from 6 episodes to 8 episodes to how many you want. So you have a lot of time to express whatever it is what the story needs to expose itself with when it comes to the audience. So anyways, you guys, that's enough for me. I talked a lot when it comes to Michael 2026. What did you guys think? Did you guys go and watch it? If so, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section at the bottom. Let's have an awesome time talking about this movie or any movies that you like to talk about in general, because I love to talk about movies, but most importantly, I love to talk about them with you. And don't forget that you can check out some more of my videos on Awesome Joe Movie Reviews. Don't forget to click on that like and subscribe button there, you guys. I really do appreciate everybody's support onto my channel. And also click on that notification bell as well, too, for future videos when they are posted. And I'll let you guys know. So Anyways, everybody, I'm Awesome Joe. Keep on living the dream. And as always, stay awesome. Thanks, you guys, once more again. And to my baby girl, I love you, sweetheart. Daddy loves you. And Daddy misses you. And Daddy cannot wait to see you again one day, my gorgeous baby. So, and to everyone else, I'll see everybody in the next video. Bye.